privilege to be here today. It was when Dave messaged me, I was like, oh my goodness, they remember me. That was really lovely. And then after I got over this kind of sense, I said to Dave, what would you like me to speak about? He said, whatever you want. It's always a dangerous thing to say. And I have to admit, my first thought was, what do you say to a 90-year-old? What do you do? What do you say? What does a 90-year-old need to hear? And pretty quickly, something came to mind, and I want to share that with you. But first of all, I'm wondering who loves going to the mailbox in the afternoon? I'm all by myself. Okay, I love going to the mailbox. I love it. And I used to love it as a kid. Wouldn't let anyone else do it. I used to love it. And I don't know what I like about it, really. I think it's something about the unknown. You never know what is going to be in there. There could be something good, something life-changing in the letterbox. You never know. Now, we don't really write letters anymore, do we? I don't remember the last time I actually wrote a letter. But I still every day go to the mailbox in hope that there'll be something there. And I have to admit, what I usually find in the mailbox is things like this. And this, and this, and bills, which is not fun. And that's what's generally in the mail, and they're not very exciting, and they're not very life-changing in a good way anyway. So there's the bills. And then every so often you get something nice. Had some good friends head to Europe, and so they send me some postcards. And so the bills generally, once I've paid them, get put in the bin. This one, they'll probably stick on my fridge for a little while and hang out in my office, all those kind of things. But eventually too, let's be honest, where are they going to go as well? Probably the bin, yeah. There's not much we actually keep and hold on to anymore. There's not particularly letters that we hold on to, except every so often. And I actually have a letter here that I have kept for, must be going on 14, 15 years. And this is a letter that my dad actually sent me when I was considering taking the role at Reedy Creek. And in it, he had amazing words of wisdom. As the son of a preacher, he had some wonderful words of encouragement for me, but also some warnings. And I reread it the other day, and I have kept it. It's sat in my Bible. And I'll read the starting line to you. I won't read it all to you, but I'll read the starting line to you. Dear Hayley, I guess this is a surprise, receiving a letter from your old dad. You have been on my mind a lot of late, and I thought I would just write and let you know how much I love you and admire what you and Gary are doing. You don't know my dad, but if you ever meet him, give him a hug for me, okay? So that's my dad, and that has sat in my Bible ever since, because that is really important. And so every so often in the mail, very rarely we get something that we want to remember, that we get something that we want to hold on to. So today we're going to look at something similar. We're going to look at a letter that was kept by the people, what I would like to tell a 90-year-old. And it was very special to them. It was probably read and reread and passed around and to the different followers of Jesus at the time, to the point that it was considered so important, so reliable, so inspired that it should be included with the other books that became the Bible almost 200 years later after it was written. And it's 2 John, a little letter towards the end of the Bible that was written probably around 85 to 90 AD. And they think by the same John as 1 John, 2 John, and 3 John. They're probably all in the same one. And it's only 13 verses, so I want to read it to you. So if you want to follow on, feel free. Let me find it first. It's towards the back. Okay. It says, the elder, to the chosen lady and her children, whom I love in the truth. And not I only, but those all who know the truth, because of the truth which lives in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Father's Son, will be with us in truth and love. It has given me great joy to find some of your children walking in the truth, just as the Father commanded us. And now, dear lady, I'm not writing you a new command, but one we have had from the beginning. I ask that we love one another. And this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands. As you've heard from the beginning, his command is that you walk in love. Many deceivers who do not acknowledge Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh have gone out into the world, and any such person is the deceiver and the antichrist. Watch out that you do not lose what you have worked for, but that you may be rewarded fully. Anyone who runs ahead and does not continue in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Whoever continues in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not take him into your house or welcome him. Anyone who welcomes him shares in his wicked work. I have much to write to you, but I do not want to use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to visit you and talk with you face to face so that our joy may be made complete. The children of your chosen sister send their greetings. That's the letter that people read and reread and passed around. So let's look a little bit deeper. It is written, surprisingly, in the structure of a letter. Now, I don't know about you, but when I used to read the Bible, and particularly the letters, I would skip over the greetings at the beginning and probably skip over the bits at the end as well, the goodbyes and the thanks and all of that kind of stuff. But it wasn't until I did a bit of study that I realized you can learn so much from the short verses, the short sentences at the beginning and at the end. And 2 John is no different. So let's take a look at the start. Let's look at verse 1. To the elder, to the lady chosen by God and to her children. The elder, someone who was old, maybe. But age in that time was associated with wisdom and someone in a position of authority. And the writer is believed, as we said, to be the disciple of John, the one who Jesus told when he was on the cross to care for my mother. It's the same John. Because of the similarities in style, we think it's him. And he must have been well known to the readers because as he sends it to them, there's nothing else there to let them know. They must have known who he was. And there does seem to be a level of knowing and understanding as he refers to them as children. Now, it depends which commentary you read as to whether he was writing specifically to a woman or a church. Some say that the elder was probably writing to a specific lady and her family, but others suggest that the chosen lady is the church and the children are the people of the church. Now, if that's the case, in this simple imagery, this simple idea, just in the opening, the chosen lady and her children of the family, John is laying down a picture of what the church is supposed to be, brought together by love. A common understanding. There is some intimacy there. And that word chosen is really interesting as well. You know that good old saying, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family? Children don't decide to be born themselves, do they? No. In most cases, children exist because their parents chose to have children, or at least for a moment thought it was a good idea. But here John is writing to the chosen lady and her children. He's saying this church has not come together by accident. It's not come together by accident. Rather, this group of people were brought together by Jesus. Pretty profound stuff. And that's just verse 1 in the greeting. We then move on to the reason that the elder is writing, and we can find that in verse 1 as well as in the greeting. If we keep reading, whom I love in the truth, and not I only, but also all who know the truth, because of the truth which lives in us and will be with us forever. Grace, mercy, and peace from God the Father and from Jesus Christ, the Father, Son, will be with us in truth and love. Can anyone pick up what John is wanting to talk about here? Come on, people, you can do it. Talk to me. Truth, I heard truth. And truth and love. Well done. Gold star to you all. And John actually, love and truth is where he's going. And John actually starts with love. In verse 5 in this letter it says, and now, dear lady, I'm not writing you a new command, but one we have had from the beginning. I ask that we love one another, and this is love, that we walk in obedience to his commands. As you have heard from the beginning, his command is that you walk in love. What's John saying? You are to love one another. But what does that look like? How do we do that? Follow Jesus' commands. Live like Jesus wanted us to. And the phrasing that John uses is really lovely. It's really active. It's walk in obedience. There's movement and action as we love each other. One of the commentaries I looked at explained that the love that John is talking about is the love spoken of here includes love for God and love for others. We show that we love God when we do what God desires. And what God desires is that we live a life of love. Love is not a feeling or emotion, but a way of life that manifests itself concretely in its concern for others in obedience to the commandments of God. It's a love that our whole being is involved in as we receive and are transformed by the love of our God. So there's the love part, and then John turns his attention to the truth. Now remember, we spoke about this letter standing the test of time. 2,000 years on, we're still looking at here. Just like in the days of John, truth is still something that we're grappling with. And whatever your political persuasion, you have to admit that this guy has come onto the political scene, and the question of truth suddenly is very, very, very relevant. It's one of the biggest discussion points. And it's tough sometimes to get through a news bulletin or an interview with any politician at the moment without hearing the word fake news or alternative facts, or that's going round and round and round. So what was the truth that John was writing about? What was going on in that time period that John felt so compelled to write to the people and warn them about? We see this in verses 7 to 9. I say this because many deceivers who do not acknowledge Jesus Christ as coming in the flesh have gone out into the world. Any such person is the deceiver and the antichrist. Watch out that you do not lose what we have worked for, but that you have been rewarded fully. Anyone who runs ahead and does not continue in the teaching of Christ does not have God. Whoever continues in the teaching has both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, do not take them into your house or welcome them. Anyone who welcomes them shares in their wicked work. John is not mucking around here. It's really strong and really serious. So what is actually going on? What has brought these really strong words about? Now, during this time, one of the ways that the message was being shared far and wide was through traveling teachers. People would walk from one place to the next place to the next place, sharing the message of Jesus to anyone who would listen. And they most would likely visit and share in the house churches that were scattered throughout the Roman Empire. These teachers were reliant on the followers of Jesus to survive, to host them, to feed them, to give them somewhere safe to sleep. And their message was meant to be about the great love of God. A love so great that God became human in Jesus and walked the earth, lived as we live, died a very human death, but then broke the bonds of death, coming back to life in 3 days and now sitting at the right hand of the Father. This was breathtaking. This was soul-shaking. This was a life-transforming message that the teachers were sharing. However, some of the teachers were traveling around with a slightly different gospel. They were changing it just a little. These people were called the Gnostics, and they believed that they had advanced beyond the teaching of the apostles. They believed that the Spirit was completely good and that any matter, including our bodies, was completely evil, and the two could never really go together. They believed that special knowledge was given to a select few, and only these people could escape the evil of our body, of the matter. And they therefore rejected that Jesus was truly human and truly God at the same time. Because in their eyes, the truly perfect God spirit and the truly evil human matter could not ever be one. And so John was saying, watch out for this teaching. That is not the truth. You are saved because God became man and paid the ultimate sacrifice. It's funny, this letter that we are looking at tonight, 2 John, is one of these ones that is so simple, really, we could cover it in 5 minutes. Love each other and follow the truth. Love each other and follow the truth. And in other ways, It is so deep, the depth of this truth. Just think about that for a moment. The depth of this truth and love, we actually would need a whole lifetime to consider and ever understand. But Jesus, being fully God and fully human, separates Christianity from any other religion. A God that loved his creation so much that he was willing to become and travel through the dirt and the muck and the grime of humanity because his creation was so worth it. So it's so much more than that, because his creation was created for joy and love and community. Am I making any sense? Give me a nod. Okay, good. Now, to bring these two ideas of truth and love together and to help us understand, you think I'd probably go to some great theologian and read their words to you. But instead, I want to turn to a novel, a book of fiction. And if you will indulge me, I want to read a few pages, because while I have read a little bit, for me, I think the words that I'm going to read to you just capture the power of Jesus' divinity and humanity in such a beautiful way. Has anyone ever seen the movie The Life of Pi? Has anyone ever read the book? Okay, because it's so much better, as they always are. Now, I'm not saying this is some great theologian. I have no idea what the author's religious beliefs are or anything. But in the beginning of this book, we meet a boy called Piscine, who of course becomes known as Pi. And he's living in India in a fairly wealthy Hindu family. And his family also owns a zoo. And at one point, they decide to go on holidays to a place called Myrna. And it's written from the perspective of a teenage Hindu boy hearing the story of Jesus for the first time. Now, I'm not presenting this as gospel, but rather just a really beautiful expression of someone grappling with Jesus' divinity and his humanity. So, I used to get into trouble for moving the chairs around, so I'm going to move a chair around. And I'm going to sit here. Now, I timed it. This goes for about 4 minutes, okay? You can handle 4 minutes with me? Good. I'm going to sit here and read it. You can close your eyes if you want, but I want you to listen carefully. I was 14 years old and a well-content Hindu on a holiday when I met Jesus Christ. There are 3 hills within Mana. They don't bear comparison with the tall hills or mountains, you might call them, that surround the town, but I noticed the first morning as we were having breakfast that they did stand out in one way. On each stood a God house. The hill on the right across the river from the hotel had a Hindu temple high on its side. The hill in the middle, further away, held up a mosque, while the hill on the left was crowned with a Christian church. On our 4th day in Mana, as the afternoon was coming to an end, I stood on the hill on the left. Despite attending a nominally Christian school, I had not yet been inside a church. And I wasn't about to dare the deed now. I knew very little about the religion. It had a reputation for a few gods and great violence, but good schools. Hillcrest. I walked around the church. It was a building unremittingly unrevealing of what it held inside, with thick, featureless walls, pale blue in colour, and high, narrow windows impossible to look through. A fortress. Now, Catholics have the reputation for severity, for judgment that comes down heavily. My experience with Father Martin was not like that at all. He was very kind. He served me tea and biscuits in a tea set that tinkled and rattled at every touch. He treated me like a grown-up, and he told me a story, or rather, since Christians are so fond of capital letters, a story. And what a story. The first thing that drew me in was disbelief. What? Humanity sins, but it's God's Son who pays the price? I tried to imagine Father saying to me, Python, a lion slipped into the llama pen today and killed 2 llamas. Yesterday, another one killed a black buck. Last week, 2 of them ate the camel. The week before, it was painted storks and grey herons. And who's to say for sure who snacked on the golden agouti? This situation has become intolerable. Something must be done. I have decided that the only way the lions can atone for their sins is if I feed you to them. Yes, Father, that would be the right and logical thing to do. Give me a moment to wash up. Hallelujah, my son. Hallelujah, my father. What a downright weird story. What peculiar psychology. Surely this religion has more than one story in its bag. Religions abound with stories. But Father Martin made me understand that the stories that came before it, and there were many, were simply prologue to the Christians. Their religion had one story, and to it they came back again and again and again, over and over. It was story enough for them. That God should put up with adversity, I could understand. The gods of Hinduism faced their fair share of thieves and bullies, kidnappers and usurpers. What is that Ramayana but the account of one long and bad day for Rama? Adversity, yes. Reversals of fortune, yes. Treachery, yes. But humiliation, death? I couldn't imagine Lord Krishna consenting to be stripped naked, whipped, mocked, dragged through the streets, and to top it off, crucified, and at the hand of mere humans to boot. I'd never heard of a Hindu god dying. Brahma revealed did not go for death. Devils and monsters did, as did mortals, but the thousands and millions, that's what they were there for. Matter too fell away, but divinity should not be blighted by death. It's wrong. The world soul cannot die, even in one contained part of it. It was wrong of this Christian God to let his avatar die. This is tantamount to letting a part of himself die. For if the Son is to die, it cannot be fake. If God on the cross is God shamming a human tragedy, it turns the passion of Christ into the farce of Christ. The death of the Son must be real. Father Martin assured me that it was. But once a dead God, always a dead God, even resurrected, the Son must have the taste of death forever in his mouth. The Trinity must be tainted by it. There must be a certain stench at the right hand of God the Father. The horror must be real. Why would God wish that upon himself? Why not leave death to the mortals? Why make dirty what is beautiful, spoil what is perfect? Love. That was Father Martin's answer. This Son who goes hungry, who suffers from thirst, who gets tired, who is sad, who is anxious, who is heckled and harassed, who has to put up with the followers who don't get it and opponents who don't respect him. What kind of a God is that? It's a God on too human a scale. That's what. There are miracles, yes, mostly of a medical nature, a few to satisfy hungry stomachs. At best, a storm is tempered, water is briefly walked upon. If that is magic, it is minor magic and on the order of card tricks. Any Hindu god can do 100 times better. This Son is a God who spent most of his time telling stories, talking. This Son is a God who walked. He was a pedestrian God, and in a hot place at that, with a stride like any human stride, the sandal reaching just above the rocks along the way. And when he splurged on transportation, it was a regular donkey. This Son is a God who died in 3 hours with moans and gasps and laments. What kind of a God is that? What is there to inspire in this Son? Love, said Father Martin. And this Son appears only once, long ago, far away, among an obscure tribe in a backwater of West Asia on the confines of a long and vanished empire, is done away with before he has a single grey hair on his head, leaves not a single descendant, only scattered partial testimony, his complete works, just drawings in the dirt. Wait a minute. This is more than Brahman with a serious case of stage fright. This is Brahman selfish. This is Brahman ungenius and unfair. This is Brahman practically unmanifest. What could justify such divine stinginess? Love, repeated Father Martin. I'll stick to my Krishna, thank you very much. I find his divinity utterly compelling. You can keep your sweaty, chatty son to yourself. And that was how I met the troublesome rabbi of long ago with disbelief and annoyance. I had tea with Father Martin for 3 days in a row. Each time as teacup rattled against the saucer, as spoon tinkled against the edge of the cup, I asked the question, and the answer was always the same. He bothered me, this son. Every day I burned with great indignation against him and found more flaws in him. But I couldn't get him out of my head. I still can't. I spent 3 solid days thinking about him, and the more he bothered me, the less I could forget him. And the more I learned about him, the less I wanted to leave him. On our last day, a few hours before we were to leave Mana, I hurried up the hill to the left. It strikes me now as a typically Christian scene. Christianity is a religion in a rush. Look at the world created in 7 days. Even on a symbolic level, that's creation in a frenzy. To one born in a religion, Hinduism, where the battle for a single soul can be a relay race over many centuries, with innumerable generations passing along the baton, the quick resolution of Christianity has a dizzying effect. If Hinduism flows placidly like the Ganges, then Christianity bustles like Toronto at rush hour. It is a religion as swift and as swallow, as urgent as an ambulance. It turns on a dime, expresses itself in an instant. In a moment, you are lost or saved. Christianity stretches back through the ages, but in essence, it exists for only one time, right now. I booted up the hill. Though Father Martin was not in, alas, his block was slid over. Thank God he was in. Short of breath, I said, Father, I would like to be a Christian, please. And he smiled. You already are, Piscine, in your heart. Whoever meets Christ in good faith is a Christian. Here in Mana, you met Christ. He patted me on the head. It was more of a thump, actually. Boom, boom, boom. And I thought I would explode with joy. When you come back, we'll have tea together, my son. Yes, Father. And it was a good smile he gave me, the smile of Christ.